and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Heather, and I cover unethical business practices, ethical paganism, and evidence-based parenting. So this is not really a video that I had planned to make. I had a whole slew of other videos planned, but when someone told me to watch this video because of the content and they wanted my take on it, I had to check it out. It took me a few days because I didn't want to look at this video. But I did finally sit down to watch the video. And honestly, I don't really know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting what I got. So I was appalled. Seriously, my jaw dropped and I was so angry I about threw something across the room. And if you know me, like in my personal life, I'm not an angry person. Like it takes a lot to rile me up because in general, I'm pretty level-headed, I like to think. But no, this video made me angry. So, the video that I'm going to be reacting to today is about witches and paganism, or well, that's what it's supposed to be about. I got like 2 minutes in and I had to stop watching. Like, seriously, I wanted to react blindly to this for y'all. So, here we are. I have not watched past like just after the introduction. So, this creator didn't put their face in the video, so I won't be having to blur it. I don't want this person to receive any hate or anything, and I honestly, I don't think that this video warrants the views. And I know that the witchy community at large would be just as appalled as I am that this video was even made. So, just as a general disclaimer, when it comes to discussing witchcraft, I tend to veer into territory like systemic racism, cultural appropriation, and as a history buff, I can be slightly pedantic. So if any of that is triggering to you, I suggest you switch off of this video now. So let's get started.
When you think of witches, you most likely think of Halloween, the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, or maybe the Charmed Ones. Our Western society has painted witchcraft as an occult practice, and television and the media has made us think of witches as women wearing pointy hats and flying around on a broomstick. However, there are witches in modern.
I just want to say really quickly what they're talking about here when they're talking about this stuff. That is actually all steeped in racism itself. It's very anti-Semitic. It's a portrayal of certain cultural things. It's like it's like a caricature of certain Jewish features and stuff. Like you think of the green witch with the large nose and um, certain aspects like that. That's all like historically. That's all steeped in racism, and I guarantee this creator doesn't touch on any of that during this video. So let's keep going.
Society who practice witchcraft daily. They could be a neighbor, your child's teacher, or your best friend could practice in secret. Today, we are going to
Wait. Okay, so here's where I started to get annoyed when I first like went through this video because it feels very McCarthy era Red Scare to me. Your neighbor could be a witch. Your best friend could be a witch. Your brother, your sister, they could all be communists. Yeah. No, I'm already the tone of this entire video is like it already feels fear-mongery, and I'm not really really not looking forward to where this goes after this. And something I want to mention is the reason I'm even doing this is because the way that certain people portray just like the by the title. This title is Pseudoscience and Cults, which is pagan and Wiccan beliefs. The thing is, not all witches are Wiccans, as we've discussed before on this channel. uh, Paganism is not just witchcraft. Paganism is an umbrella term encompassing a whole lot of religions, and I have a video on that, and I will link it below that you can go check out if you want to know more about the history of the term pagan. But it is important to me as a witch, as a pagan woman, that we don't discuss witchcraft as if it's something to be feared or if it's like pseudosciency cultish weirdness, because I'll be the first to tell you I think Wicca is a cult, but that's not all witches are Wiccan. So I don't want all of us to be lumped into a certain group. So basically my aim with this video is simply to point out the stereotypical nonsense that's out there about the pagan faith and hopefully debunk some of it. Now, I'm not entirely sure where this creator is going because like I said, I haven't actually watched the whole video, but I have a really bad feeling. And if I'm wrong, I won't post this video. But if you're seeing this video right now, it's because I was right and I had a very good reason to have a bad feeling about this video. So anyway, let's continue now that I've ranted forever.
Explore witches and witchcraft. What is their history? Why are there so many witches in modern society? Do they fly around on broomsticks? Are they dangerous? All your questions will be answered soon.
What was that intro? I mean, it wasn't bad. Actually, it was really clever and it was really creative, but like the mishmash of like real cults with not really cultish things and like horror movie clips. Like I'm a horror movie buff. I recognized a whole lot of those clips. Like, there was a Batman clip. I'm so good. Why was there a Batman clip? Anyway, I'm not here to critique the art. I'm here to critique the message. So far, the messaging is literally it says, yes, this is a cult. Witchcraft is not a cult. I'm not in a cult. If you're a witch, you're not in a cult inherently. I mean, Wicca's a cult, but most people don't actually practice real Wicca anyway, so it's fine. Let's find out what this creator is going to define witches as.
Witchcraft. Traditionally, the exercise or invocation of alleged supernatural powers to control people or events. Practices typically involving sorcery or magic.
No. Oh my god. No. Oh my god. That definition applies to like fantasy novels and stuff, I'm sure. But like, that's not what witchcraft in the modern era is, okay? Modern witches don't believe they can practice sorcery. So that definition is outdated or pulled from a website or something that talks about fantasy writing because that's not what witches are. So let's carry on.
Term witchcraft and witch derive from Old English witchcraft, from wicca masculine or wis feminine, pronounced witcha and witcha, respectively, denoting someone who practices sorcery, and from craft, meaning craft or skill. This term is often mispronounced as Wicca when discussing the modern-day religion of witchcraft. In order to fully understand witches and why they have returned to cast spells on all of us in the year 2021.
Wait, what? I'm sorry. Returned to cast spells on all of us? Oh my gosh. Okay, let me explain something very simply right now to anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching this. Witches, modern day witches throughout history, spell casting is just a different form of prayer, right? So my spells, and you know, you can't see it, but there's air quotes there. My spells are usually like a meditative thing. It's like a way for me to ground myself. I burn some incense. I um, might chant certain affirmations or something, but like the only people who think that witchcraft is about spell work in the terms of I can control other people are like teenagers who discovered Thea Sabine or oh my gosh, what's her name? Silver something? Raven Silverwolf? I don't there's this Wiccan author. I can't remember her name right off the top of my head. But she writes about like love spells and stuff and basically a whole bunch of teens gravitate towards her books. But anyway, point is we're not here to cast spells over all of you. This type of fear-mongering nonsense literally gets people killed.
We will have to take a look at their history and the two main religions associated with witchcraft today, paganism and wicca. Don't want to say it wrong.
But you did just say it wrong. It's not actually pronounced witcha. the Old English term. So Wicca, the term Wicca comes from an Old English term, like the definition said. That's actually accurate. But the way that language evolves and the way that uh, terms change meaning over time and change pronunciation, like we don't pronounce everything the same way that the Old English did. We don't spell everything the same way that the Old English did. There's a very, very big reason for that. Over centuries, things evolve and change. It's pronounced Wicca. It's not pronounced Witcha. Please don't start pronouncing it that way, people.
The Salem witch trials. This will be a very brief outline as many people were accused and prosecuted. I'm going to discuss the main cases involved that began the trials and what finally stopped this hysteria. The Salem witch trials were a series of hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. More than 200 people were accused. 30 were found guilty, 19 of whom were executed by hanging, 14 women and 5 men. One other man, Gillis Corey, was pressed to death for refusing to plead, and at least 5 people died in jail. In the 11th century, attitudes towards witchcraft and sorcery began to change.
I don't want to just accuse people of plagiarism, but I just Googled that and this creator is literally just reading from the Britannica website at this point. This is very concerning. It is concerning that because in the description of this video there are no sources linked. There's nothing linked as far as sources go, and I will show that here in a minute whenever we get through this video. Something that's concerning to me is that they're reading off of whatever website, right? But they're jumping around. Like we were just talking about the Salem witch trials and now we're talking about 11th century witchcraft. Also, why are we talking about the Salem witch trials? There were no witches. There were no witches at the Salem witch trial. It was all fear and prejudice and religious nonsense. Also, fun fact, my youngest daughter is a near direct descendant of Samuel Parris, the Samuel Parris who was convicting people of being witches, which is kind of cool because her mom's a witch, so it's funny.
Process that would radically transform the Western perception of witchcraft and associate it with heresy and the devil. By the 14th century,
Heresy. It's pronounced heresy.
Fear of heresy and of Satan had added changes of diabolism to the usual indictment of witches. Malevolent sorcery. It was
Malevolent. They mean malevolent sorcery here.
It was this combination of sorcery and its association with the devil that made Western witchcraft unique. From the 14th century through the 18th century, witches were believed to repudiate Jesus Christ, to worship the devil and make pacts with him, selling one's soul in exchange for Satan's assistance, to employ demons to accomplish magical deeds, and to desecrate the crucifix.
Desecrate. They mean desecrate.
And the consecrated bread and wine of the Holy Communion. It was also believed that they rode through the air at night to sabbats, which were secret meetings, where they engaged in sexual orgies and even had sex with Satan, that they changed shapes from human to animal or from one human form to another, that they often had familiar spirits in the form of animals, and that they kidnapped and murdered children for the purpose of eating them or rendering their fat for magical ointments. This fabric of ideas was a fantasy, although some people undoubtedly practiced sorcery with the intent to harm, and some may actually have worshipped the devil. In reality, no one ever fit the concept of the witch. Nonetheless, the witch's crimes were defined in law. The witch hunt varied enormously in place and in time, but they were united by a common and coherent theological and legal worldview. In 1688, the behavior of several children in the home of the Goodwin family in Boston results in the accusation, trial, and execution of their Irish washerwoman Anne Glover, also known as Goody Glover, for witchcraft. On January 20th of 1692, 11-year-old Abigail Williams and 9-year-old Elizabeth Parris began behaving much as the Goodwin children acted 3 years earlier. Soon, Ann Putman Jr. and other Salem girls begin acting similarly. In mid-February of the same year, a local doctor, historically assumed to be Dr. Griggs, attends to the afflicted girls and first suggests that witchcraft may be the cause. Around February 25th, Mary Sibley, or Sibley, a neighbor of the Parris family, instructs John Indian, the husband of Tituba, to make a witch cake of rye meal and the girls' urine to be fed to a dog in order to discover who is bewitching the girls. Yeah, like that would work. According to English folk white magic practices. She later is called out by Reverend Parris for this, and her expression of regret is accepted by the congregation. Pressured by ministers and townspeople to say who caused her odd behavior, Elizabeth Parris identifies Tituba. The girls later accuse Sarah Osborne and Sarah Good of witchcraft. On March 11th, Ann Putnam Jr. shows symptoms of affliction by witchcraft. Mercy Lewis, Mary Walcott, and Mary Warren later alleged affliction as well. On March 12th, Ann Putnam Jr. accuses Martha Corey of witchcraft. On October 6th, 8 children in custody are released on £2,500 bail. On October 12th, Governor Phips writes to the Privy Council of King William and Queen Mary, saying that he has stopped the proceedings and referring to what danger some of their innocent subjects might be exposed to if the evidence of the afflicted persons only did prevail, i.e., spectral evidence. On October 29th, Phips prohibits further arrests, releases many of the accused from prison, and dissolves the court of Oyer and Terminer. On December 16th, an act is passed for the establishment of a superior court of assizes and general gaol delivery to convene in January and prosecute the remaining people in custody. After that, everyone seemed to be found not guilty. It became more and more apparent that witches were non-existent and that these trials were based on misinformation or on negative personal feelings the victim had towards the accused. On February 21st of the next year, Governor Phips writes to England that 53 people have already been cleared, failing to be indicted by grand jurors or found not guilty at trial, and that he has vacated the death sentences of those who have been sentenced to be executed. The letter read, I hereby declare that as soon as I came from fighting and understood what danger some of their innocent subjects might be exposed to, if the evidence of the afflicted persons only did prevail either to the committing or trying of any of them, I did before any application was made unto me about it. Put a stop to the proceedings of the court, and they are now stopped till their majesties' pleasure be known. Governor Phips, Boston, October 12, 1692.
That is the only citation that this creator will give for this entire thing. Something I want to note as we're watching this, the art that is being displayed is fantastic. Some of this is some seriously amazing art, but none of it is cited in the description. And even if some of them are free stock photos, a lot of them are famous pieces of work that should be cited. You should probably credit artists, just my opinion. So far, we've talked about the Salem witch trials, and I know that it's kind of hard to follow and understand what this creator is saying because they're just reading off something. But and it's clear that they're reading off something that they didn't write because of the way that they're talking. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Someone can tell me in the comments if they think that I'm insane or whatever. But I did find, and I'll link it, I did find the Britannica article talking about the Salem witch trials, and some of that was verbatim spoken in this. So that's not linked in the description of the video either. But so right now we're talking about the Salem witch trials, in which, as we know, people were hung. One person was crushed to death by stones. They stacked stones on this person until they died. If anybody read The Crucible in high school, you pretty much have an idea about how the Salem witch trials were and how they weren't really about witchcraft. They were all about prejudice and nonsense, right? And Christianity running unchecked through a community. But so right now we're not talking about paganism or even really modern witchcraft. We're talking about the Salem witch trials, which is not remotely connected to modern witchcraft. So I'm hoping there's a point to all this because I, I don't know. It's a little bit frustrating so far.
The witch trials were finally over. And in 1697, on January 14th, the General Court declared a day of contrition for the hysteria and false accusations, for which there was fasting and praying for forgiveness. In 1700, Abigail Faulkner Sr. requests that the Massachusetts General Court reverse the attainder on her name. In 1706, Anne Putnam Jr. stands before her church and offers an apology for her part in the witch trials. Now we look back on the Salem witch trials as a time when mental health issues could have been severely misunderstood, as many people have claimed those who were burned at the stake were merely suffering from mental health issues. However, it appears most of the trials occurred due to personal issues the victims had toward the accused. After that, the families of those who were prosecuted and sentenced to death during these trials spent years trying to defend their family members' innocence and fought against the court system to do so. Many were not seen as innocent still. This is because so many people still believed in witchcraft, in Satan, or the occult, much like we seem to today.
Sort of. I mean, yeah, there's occultists, yeah, there's Satanists. I'm not understanding the problem though. I like, and I'll say this creator does like anti-MLM stuff. They do, scam stuff, and they talk about pseudoscience and cults, which is totally perfectly fine and valid. I mean, a lot of anti-MLM creators do sort of cross territory with scams and culty behavior and pseudoscience because it all sort of is like the same psychology seems to exist behind all of it. So it makes total sense that someone would talk about these things. But I'm not entirely certain why this creator has chosen to basically attack a religion and a faith that they seem not to know much about at all. I don't know. Honestly, we're 10 minutes in and I'm still really confused. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get to the point soon.
Paganism. Paganism represents a wide variety of traditions that emphasize reverence for nature and a revival of ancient polytheistic and animistic religious practices. Some modern forms of paganism have their roots in 19th century CE European nationalism, including the British Order of Druids. But most contemporary pagan groups trace their immediate organizational roots to the 1960s.
This is not true. Most pagans do not trace their faith beliefs because the 1960s, I already know where this is going, and this creator's already 2 decades off, so we'll see how that goes. But paganism has been around for a very long time. Again, go watch my paganism video if you want to know more about it. In the 1960s was when Wicca was uh, spread internationally, right? It was created in like the 50s, but in the 60s and the 70s it really like took hold across the world. That's not when paganism started, and that's not where most of us trace our roots. So this is already factually false. It's
And have an emphasis on archetypal psychology and a spiritual interest in nature. Paganism is not a traditional religion per se, because it does not have any official doctrine, but it does have some common characteristics, joining the great variety of traditions. One of the common beliefs is the divine presence in nature and the reverence of the natural order in life. Spiritual growth is related to the cycles of the earth, and great emphasis is placed on ecological concerns. Monotheism is almost universally rejected within paganism, and most pagan traditions are particularly interested in the revival of ancient polytheist religious traditions, including the Norse, Northern Europe, and Celtic Britain traditions. Many pagan traditions are internationally reconstructionist in that they aim to revive many of the lost rituals of the ancient tradition.
And I've talked about this. Yes, uh, a lot of pagan religions are reconstructionist in nature. There's two different types of, two like different umbrellas under the umbrella term of paganism. You have your reconstructionist faiths and you have your neo-pagan faiths. When this creator's talking about like, tracing the roots of paganism back to the 1960s, they're talking specifically about the neo-pagan stuff, not the reconstructionist stuff. So when we're talking about Norse polytheism and Celtic polytheism, that all is steeped in the reconstruction side of paganism. However, a lot of Wiccans do tend to draw from the Celtic paganism. Um, and it's really, really important to note that Celtic does not just mean the British Isles, right? Uh, the Celts actually were all over Western Europe, including parts of France, Spain, Germany. They were basically everywhere. The Celts themselves were not just the Irish and the Scottish and the Welsh and such. Something else I want to note is that it is not almost universally rejected monotheism within pagan communities. There are many, many pagans who are monotheistic. Okay, so that's just another false attribution that if you don't know what you're talking about and you're just like Googling paganism, yeah, that's the kind of stuff you're going to pull up. Like some of the stuff that this creator was reading off was straight from the paganism Wikipedia page. And I'll link that down below if anyone wants to read it. But it's concerning that no research was done here. It doesn't appear that this creator even just like attempted to contact someone who is actually pagan or actually a witch. It seems like they went off a whole bunch of stereotypes or something, and like looking more into this creator's background, it looks like they had like a falling out with someone who is in the pagan community and this is more like a personal thing. Half of what this person is saying isn't even true.
Including holy days and seasonal celebrations. Besides nature, many pagans also worship a variety of gods and goddesses, including spirits which can represent national and local heroes as well as deceased family members. In this sense, many pagans try to honor their ancestry and ancestors. Some pagan traditions include ritual magic, but this practice is not universal. Some pagans limit their religious practice to the veneration of nature. However, mythologies from around the world often emerged in cultures with horticultural or agricultural economics. Thus, such myths generally have strong fertility or natural imagery. Various deities are associated with various elements of the natural world: the sky, the sea, the earth, trees, rivers, forests, the hunt, grain, and so forth. Engaging in religious practice informed by such natural imagery can be a direct.
I just wanted to pause and look at this. Pentagram, a common paganism symbol representing air, water, earth, fire, and the spirit. Yes, it's a common pagan symbol, I guess. But largely Wiccans tend to use the pentagram rather than, it's not a universally pagan symbol. Not all pagans are the same. Not all pagans worship the same thing. There are different types of paganism. Okay, I'll carry on now.
Way of cultivating a rich spirituality of devotion to the earth, i.e., Gaia. Sorry if I said that wrong. Today, paganism and wicca have been placed under the same umbrella, and we will discuss that more later. Wicca, or misspelt and pronounced as Wicca. Wicca can be traced.
It is not misspelled or mispronounced. The guy who came up with the term Wicca, it wasn't Gardner, by the way, if anyone's got any knowledge of history on that. It was the guy who took Gardner's idea and created Alexandrian Wicca. He's the one who ascribed the term Wicca to it, along with Doreen Valiente and a couple others. Gardner himself never actually referred to it as Wicca. So, and it's kind of like it's ridiculous to keep trying to say that people who are of that faith are mispronouncing their own, like, faith, like, no. It's called Wicca, it's spelled Wicca. It's not the same as the Old English term, therefore, it's different, it's different, and I know I'm, like, all over the place, and I keep pausing to ramble, but God, this video just chaps my ass.
To a retired British civil servant, Gerald Brousseau Gardner. He was born in 1884 and died in 1964. Gardner spent most of his career in Asia, where he became familiar with a variety of occult beliefs and magical practices. He also read widely in Western esoteric literature, including the
Esoteric. They mean esoteric. And again, they're reading off of something they don't even know all of the words that they're reading. And normally that is not a thing that bothers me because sometimes you have words that you've only ever seen read and you don't like actually know how they're pronounced out loud, which is totally fine and valid. The problem is that because they didn't do their research and because they just read off of the Wikipedia page for Gerald Gardner, because they're doing that, it's very clear that they're just reading off of stuff they didn't write themselves. And that's highly problematic.
writings of the British occultist Aleister Crowley. We will be doing a deep dive on him soon. Wicca is
Wait. Hold up. Let me go back.
magical practices. He also read widely in Western esoteric literature, including the writings of the British occultist Aleister Crowley. We will be
Yeah, I guess he did read some of Crowley's stuff, but they didn't really like each other. They worked together. Like it's not that Gardner took a bunch from Crowley. They both started their own little occult weirdness around the same time. So a lot of people attribute them to being like copycats of each other, but that's not really what happened. They independently came to their weird conclusions and then later on in their lives they worked together. Crowley was a weirdo, gotta say.
doing a deep dive on him soon.
Oh God, I hope that this creator doesn't do a deep dive on Crowley. As much as they're getting wrong in this one, I can imagine the level of ridiculousness that a Crowley video would be.
Wicca is predominantly a Western movement whose followers practice witchcraft and nature worship and who see it as a religion based on pre-Christian traditions of Northern and Western Europe. Adherents of Wicca worship the goddess, honor nature, practice ceremonial magic, invoke the aid of deities, and celebrate Halloween, the summer solstice, and the vernal equinox. A parallel movement, neo-paganism, also worship the goddess and practice witchcraft, but eschewed the designation witch. Neo-pagans were found throughout the English-speaking world and across Northern and Western Europe. Estimates of the number of adherents range dramatically, with the number of witches in the United States believed to be between 100,000 and more than 1.5 million. The rise of Wicca and neo-paganism is due in part to increasing religious tolerance and syncretism, a growing awareness of the symbolism of the unconscious, the retreat of Christianity, the popularity of fantasy and science fiction, the growth of feminism, the ascendancy of deconstructionist and relativist theory, and an increasing emphasis upon individuality and subjectivity. Most modern neo-pagans distrustful of the demands of traditional religions, eschew doctrine or creed, and engage in the ritual expression of symbolic and experiential meanings. Although neo-paganism incorporates the emotional involvement and ritual practices associated with religion into its tradition, many neo-pagans prefer to think of themselves as practicing magic rather than religion.
It's not quite that simple. It's not that pagans tend to prefer to consider themselves to be practicing magic rather than religion. It's spirituality. It's not organized religion. Yes, whatever article this creator is reading from is absolutely right. A lot of pagans have renounced organized religion because it's dogmatic, it is problematic, it's caused a whole lot of problems, but it's not just for those reasons. And the rise of paganism absolutely can be attributed to the things like the rise of feminism and specifically fourth wave feminism. And it can be attributed to a whole host of things.
Both Wiccans and neo-pagans also have strong ecological and environmental concerns and celebrate the change of seasons with elaborate rituals. Covens, which ideally number 10 to 15 members and are entered through an initiation ritual, sometimes align with one of many coven associations. As coven members master the practice of magic and become familiar with the rituals, they pass through 2 degrees of initiation. There is a third degree for those who wish to enter the priesthood.
Hey guys, Editing Heather here. I just want to note that here this creator seems to be talking mostly about Wicca and not witchcraft as a whole. As I've said before, Wicca and witchcraft aren't the same thing, but they seem to be making the very common mistake of assuming that they are. So when they're talking about covens and, nature worship and stuff, that is not all witches. It's not even all Wiccans. So I just wanted to note that right quick.
What do Wiccans believe? They believe in the goddess, respect nature, and hold both polytheistic and pantheistic views. Most Wiccans accept the so-called Wiccan Rede, an ethical code that states, "If it harm none, do what you will." Wiccans believe in meditation and participate in rituals throughout the year, celebrating the new and full moon, as well as the vernal equinox, summer solstice, and Halloween, which they call Samhain.
It is not Samain, it's Samhain or Samhain or Savin, depending on which area of the UK you're in.
Wiccan rites include invoking the aid of the deities, practicing ceremonial magic, and sharing a ritual meal. If you search online, you will find several communities dedicated to Wiccans. Several shops open to buy magical potions and ceremonial pieces as well. Many practice in different ways. It is hard to pinpoint the different types of Wiccans as it is such a broad religion, one that is very much based on paganism as well. Spirituality is now firmly placed in mainstream culture. The growing interest in astrology driven by millennials, as well as the popularity of crystals and tarot cards via the ballooning wellness industry, have brought mysticism from the fringes and right into your Instagram, Facebook, and even your YouTube feed. Casting spells and assembling altars have become quite lucrative. You can attend a fall equinox ritual organized by Airbnb, sign up for subscription witch boxes offering the equivalent of Blue Apron for magic making, and buy aura cleanses on Etsy. Instagram's reigning witch influencer Brie Luna has more than 450,000 followers and has collaborated with Coach, Refinery29, and Smashbox, for which she recently introduced a line of cosmetics inspired by the transformative quality of crystals. As the 21st century began, Wiccans and neo-pagans were found throughout the English-speaking world and across Northern and Western Europe. Estimates of adherents range dramatically, as I mentioned, with the number of Wiccans in the United States believed to be between 100,000 and more than 1.5 million. The Pagan Federation, an international fellowship, serves the larger Wiccan neo-pagan community. Today, the Pagan Federation has placed Wiccans and neo-pagans under the same umbrella, which is how so many people confuse the two.
Yeah, and here's another. This is how else I know that they are reading off of something. They literally just read off about how you confuse that people get paganism and Wicca confused. But like earlier, this creator was basically saying they're the same thing. So not only are they reading off of sources that they haven't cited, I will show the description as I've said, they haven't cited any of these sources, but not only are they doing that, but they have a whole bunch of articles that they're reading from that like clash. They don't even agree on the terms. I just I don't know what offends me more. Am I offended more by the blatant plagiarism, or am I offended by the complete lack of research and the fear mongering towards my religion? Like, I can't decide.
Being a witch is very popular today, but why? What about today makes us want to start casting spells again all of a sudden? The latest witch renaissance coincides with a growing fascination with astrology, crystals, and tarot, which, like magic, practitioners consider ways to tap into unseen, unconventional sources of power, and which can be especially appealing for people who feel disenfranchised or who have grown weary of trying to enact change by working within the system.
Okay, that is a gross oversimplification. First of all, most people who do tarot don't think that they're tapping into some higher power or whatever. Most people who do tarot understand that it is a tool for introspection. Again, I have a video on that. I'll link it below as well. And yeah, a lot of people do feel disenfranchised right now. I mean, we're living in a capitalist freaking dystopia. It's awful out here, especially for those who are in poverty. Yeah, of course. Just like for time immemorial, the disenfranchised people have sort of turned to unconventional methods because, like, for a really long time, Christianity was the rich people's religion, right? That sort of lifestyle is a privilege, and people who don't have the privilege of a solid education or good school funding to provide that solid education, people who have to rely on folk medicine because they don't have health insurance to be able to go to the doctor. Yeah, of course, a lot of people are going to turn to more folk remedy type stuff. A lot of people are going to turn to folklore instead of just your, average suburban 2.5 kids, a dog, and a cat, white picket fence lifestyle. I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing that people are turning to other faith systems. I don't like this portrayal that somehow that's wrong. Just because people are disenfranchised and they're turning to something beyond Christianity because it failed them, you know? This fear mongering is really gross. Gotta say.
Modern witchcraft has drawn more women than men, as well as many people of color and queer or transgender individuals. A witch can be any gender. We have seen a rise in holistic medicine as well as of late, due to society no longer having trust and faith in Western medicine. Another example.
No, like I said, a lot of people have turned to holistic medicine because they don't have access, they don't have the privilege or the means to access proper medicine. And so folk medicine and holistic remedies, as much as I might disagree with certain holistic remedies, like the whole homeopathy thing where water has memory, I think all that's garbage. It's not scientifically sound. But we cannot judge people because of that, because it's not entirely their fault. And I could go on and on and on about the reasons that people are turning to folk medicine because it's like where I grew up in the way that I grew up. Like, if we got injured, if like we didn't have money to take me or my brother or any other family member to like the ER, it cost a whole lot of money, right? So if it wasn't super serious, we treated it ourselves. One time I got like an inch gash in my ankle. We treated it ourselves. We knew how to do basic first aid stuff because we had no other options. When we were sick, like really sick, it was the vapor rub on the feet thing. Every family who has grown up poor or in a super rural environment has their folk medicine-y stuff. They have their um, tricks and medical things that they all do to avoid having to go to a doctor because you can't always afford that. And like even after my mom got us on health insurance and stuff because her job was able to she had a job that was able to do that for us. Still, it was rare that we'd go to a doctor. Unless it was something that, like, if we were gonna get infected or, like, one time I fell and hit my head at school and mom took me to make sure that I wasn't having a brain bleed or something, you know, poor people, people of color, queer people, we don't always have the privilege of being able to just accept Western medicine, right? Oh my god, That's a whole video on its own, and I'll probably have to do that.
Of this is how the anti vaccination community seemed to be on the rise again, despite all science and medicine explaining not vaccinating can lead to severe illness or even death. However, when we stop putting trust into our doctors, scientists, and political
Wait, are are we saying here that anti-vaxxers are because of paganism? No, that's not. Let's not blame an entire faith system that isn't even homogenous for the anti-vaxxer movement. The anti-vaxxer movement does come from a place of distrust, but it has nothing to do with paganism. What?
figures, we begin to look for the answers elsewhere. Lately, we have been looking for the answers in tarot cards and crystal readings. A great example of this
What the fuck is a crystal reading? And no one's searching for all of the answers, especially regarding health with tarot. I mean, yeah, there are shysters out there. There are con artists who will take your money and read the cards for you or whatever. And yeah, that is completely unethical. But not everyone who has an interest in tarot is that kind of person. The logical fallacies alone in this are nauseating.
is most recently in DC when several witches met on Capitol Hill in order to protest a comment they did not appreciate.
Okay, I had to go look up whatever this creator is talking about because I didn't know about any witchy protest. But here is what I found. According to electablog.com, is the headline: Michigan witches against patriarchy rally at the Capitol to protest abusive language by Republicans, April 14th, 2021. They did not march on Capitol Hill. They marched up to the capital of Michigan. And here's a brief summary of what the article says. Whether it's Michigan Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey constantly referring to Governor Whitmer's looks and calling her a gal, or Michigan Republican Party Chair Ron Weiser calling our Governor's Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson and Attorney General Dana Nessel witches to be burned at the stake, Republicans' public language has become increasingly abusive. It's easy to blame Donald Trump for this devolution of Republican rhetoric, but these men, along with far too many of their colleagues, are responsible for their own actions. Women in Michigan have had it. These are no longer isolated incidents, and they are becoming the norm, and they've crossed the line into outright abuse. In response, Bridget Huff, the electoral chair of Metro Detroit Political Action Network, along with the group Femmes for Dems, has organized a rally titled Michigan Witches Against Patriarchy. The event will take place on the state capitol building Wednesday, April 14th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. They are encouraging people to wear their witch garb and bring brooms to the protest. So it's not even like witches, it's women who are sick and tired of being treated as second class citizens marching on a capitol to protest not a comment, as this creator has said. They're protesting the poor treatment of women in politics, the poor treatment of women in general.
As you can see, there are many reasons why witchcraft is on the rise in this century. What do you think the main reason is? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. In conclusion, the history of witchcraft is hard to pinpoint. It has a long history, and many would argue that African culture began witchcraft. This is because of their practice of voodoo and other occult practices. Let me know if you want me to dive into that.
Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to say right now this creator is a white person, and they're talking about African practices and voodoo. And first of all, I'm not educated enough on voodoo or hoodoo or any of it to really make a definitive statement on that. But what I can say is that this creator better not do a video about voodoo. That is not an area that they should touch as a white person. It is not an area that they even get to have an opinion on. If they're going to get all of this, and this is decidedly white bitch stuff, right? This is decidedly, Wicca is like steeped in awfulness and cultural appropriation and just terrible colonization settler mindset. It's one thing for this creator to get everything wrong about this, I cannot imagine the backlash that they will face if they touch the subject of voodoo. I sincerely hope they don't go there, like, at all.
Another video. The issue with witchcraft is that it is often seen as a cult, meaning that there are ties to Satanism within it. However, that
That is not what a cult means. A cult doesn't mean that there are ties to Satanism. And what does this creator think Satanism is? Because it isn't actually the worship of Satan. Like, they need the barest amount of research would have dissuaded this person from making this video, I swear.
is not always the case. Let's end that stigma right now. Many witches, especially in today's culture, don't even realize they are practicing what Aleister Crowley taught. They don't understand that connection. It is also fair to say that there are two types of magic that most witches practice: white magic, or good magic, and black magic.
Okay, I'm gonna get back on my soapbox for a second. White magic and black magic, inherently racist ideas. Black magic comes from the idea that any bad magic, from voodoo to hoodoo to any sort of folk magic that is done by black people or Hispanic people, like brujeria, they are seen as black magic, usually. Black magic and white magic are a concept that are inherently racist. And there are not just two types of magic. And also, most witches don't actually believe in, like, waving a magic wand, doing magic spells type stuff. Again, the barest hint, barest effort into any research would have alerted this creator to that. Editing Heather here again. I didn't comment on this, but I think it's important to note that Aleister Crowley did not create any of he created one religion called the Lemma, and it is not widely practiced today, not in the way that Wicca or any other type of paganism is. Also, all witchcraft that exists today, even the Wiccan stuff, as much as I hate to admit it, all that type of witchcraft is based in old stuff, even if it's just like stolen bits of different cultures like Wicca is and Thelema at the same time. It's still based in older stuff. So to say that witches don't even know that they're practicing something that Aleister Crowley created, no, that's not remotely accurate. He created a cult, but he did not invent modern witchcraft.
Evil magic. It is said that black magic has ties to Satanism, but the rest of witchcraft is merely people celebrating nature, having rituals that involve lighting candles and chanting, having meetups which are no different than usual social gatherings. I mean, besides maybe some spells being cast, and then worshiping the gods. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. I have said this before when covering communities such as this, and I will say it again. There is nothing wrong with being a practicing witch today. If you want to have fun casting spells, doing chants, lighting candles, etc., go for it. As long as you are not hurting anyone, there is no harm done. If it harm none, do what you will, right? However, as soon as you begin to sell your tarot card readings as witchcraft, or you begin to charge people for spells, then I have an issue. There is a gray area where people often sell the ritualistic materials, crystals, books of spells, and etc. However, I don't have much of an issue with that. If there is a demand and you aren't overcharging, then there is no issue. However, if you are practicing witchcraft, I ask that you be careful of those trying to take advantage of you. There are scammers everywhere, and I am sure that they exist in this realm as well. Luckily, we are not living in the time of the Salem witch trials, although many who practice witchcraft publicly do claim they have received scrutiny. I must ask people not to do that. If you would not make fun of someone's religion, do not make fun of someone practicing witchcraft, as for many, it is their religion. Wicca and paganism are still seen as religions by many, and therefore we should not be judging people based on this. The main issue here is, why don't we trust our politicians, our doctors, and others in authority? Why are we turning to casting spells and reading tarot cards to try to gain some sense of control in this world? I don't have all the answers to those questions yet, and even if I did, I doubt it would put a stop to witchcraft. Please do give the video a like and subscribe if you're new here. I have opened up memberships on my channel, so be sure to check those out. Every bit helps me run this channel and continue making good quality content for you. I mean, I think it's at least decent quality. Let me know what you think in the comments below about witches, witchcraft, and even how we can combat our lack of trust in authority figures. Besides that, be careful on Halloween at midnight, since I hear that is when the real witches are resurrected and none of us are safe.
I have so much to say. Okay, it's one thing to like end the video on it. There's nothing wrong with witchcraft, and like it's totally fine as long as you're not scamming people. First of all, what gives this creator the right to tell anybody anything? Like, what? Since when are they the arbiter of all that is right and good in this world? Second of all, the narrative that was built around witchcraft in this video was alarming, and the plagiarism, like literally. And I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna try and find all of the links to all of the articles that I know were plagiarized because there are several Wikipedia articles. None of them were linked down below. I don't really know what else there is to say. Like I have so much like swirling in my head right now because like this was like I didn't finish this video, so I didn't script my reaction to this like I would normally. And I I want to know what y'all think. I want to know what y'all think in the comments because I'm curious, especially if you are remotely in the witchy community. I'm really curious what your thoughts are and if you notice the same things that I did as far as the plagiarism and the racism goes. That's none of that is what witchcraft is. None of that is what paganism is. Reading the Wikipedia articles and the Britannica articles in a video and saying, "Well, that's what it is not." This person really should have gone out and actually talked to someone in this faith. And like I don't know that they're ever going to see this video, and honestly, I hope not because I don't feel like dealing with the drama. But if they do, I implore you, and I'm speaking directly to you, the creator of this video, please, for the love of all that is holy in this world, if you intend to do any further videos on paganism or witchcraft or tarot even, because someone told me you did a tarot video too, and now I'm going to have to check that out. Please, for the love of God, do research next time. Or talk to a witch. So I did promise to go and pull up the description box so that y'all could see that there was no citations. There's nothing here. I don't want anyone to go and like seek them out and give them hate or anything. Something I really want to note is that this creator is doing a huge disservice by this fear mongering video thing. And if you go back and you look at their old content, you can see that they had some beef with some other witchy people, other witchy creators on YouTube, which is totally fine. People have their feuds, people have their arguments and stuff like that. But my problem is that because of that feud, they have developed a prejudice against witchcraft and paganism. And what they've done here is they've spread misinformation, and honestly, they've done it in the most repulsive way. And it like honestly, I feel sick to my stomach because I'm thinking back to when I was in high school and I was living in my very conservative Christian hometown, and I'm queer and I'm a witch and I always have been. I've always been pagan. And thinking back to all the harassment and the bullying that I faced because of those two factors. And all I'm thinking about is those kids who are coming into their own now, who are queer now, who are witches, who are pagan, who are disabled, who are coming into their own, and there are grown ass adults out there spreading misinformation like that could get these kids hurt. I don't know that anyone's ever going to see this video, but if you watch this video without the context of knowing that this person, this creator has beef with other witchy creators and that's what causes prejudice, you're just watching it and you're going to see it and you're going to be like, "Oh, well, they must be accurate," because who does their own research? We assume, like as just regular people, we assume that if someone is putting themselves out there like this, usually we hope that they have done their research. So there's a lot of people that won't do further research to confirm information that they found on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever. And that's a problem. So if you're going to put information like this out there, you better be damn sure that it is well sourced. Every source that you use should be cited so that people can go and find further information if they need it. And you shouldn't plagiarize. Plagiarism isn't just writing. It isn't just taking someone's words and copying them down and like turning in a paper, right? Plagiarism is using someone else's words and passing them off as your own, and that is exactly what has happened here. And I'm going to link in the description box below the articles that I definitively could find that were plagiarized. And if the creator of this ever sees this, please don't make any more paganism videos without talking to someone who is pagan. Please don't make any more witchcraft videos without actually talking to someone who knows what they're talking about. And that's all I have to say on that. So I genuinely hope everyone is having a wonderful day by the time that you see this. I will see y'all next week. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I will see y'all later. Bye, y'all.